All right, so as you all know, I've been covering in detail the aspects of the Charlie Kirk killing. And what became very clear very quickly is that the official story makes less than no sense. It's actually insulting to everybody's intelligence. Even if you're paying minimal attention to the story, it is insulting to your intelligence what Kash Patel and the FBI are trying to get away with, what the official narrative is. So as we pointed out a number of times, according to the official story, he changed like 3 times. Nobody can explain why. According to the official story, he assembled and disassembled a weapon, the 30-06, an old 30-06. It's very difficult to assemble and would require a tool and time. He disassembled it and reassembled it like 3 different times. Even at one point, allegedly doing the shooting, disassembling it instead of just running, disassembling it, putting it in his backpack, running into the woods, and then reassembling it. It doesn't make sense. That shit does not make sense. And those are just some of the things that don't make sense. The decoys in the audience don't make sense. There was one guy on campus with a pellet gun that looked like a real gun. He was one of the decoys. People don't even talk about that guy much anymore. There was that other old guy who was a decoy who just happened to also be at other previous historic events of similar magnitude to this. And so, people have pointed out the story, it just doesn't add up. Even the, the entrance wound, exit wound type stuff, the original story was the bullet ricocheted off the top of his bulletproof vest and went through his neck, and that's why the entrance wound was so large, because it wouldn't make sense. Like, that could not... An entrance wound is usually very small. The exit wound is usually the large thing. And so there had to be some sort of explanation. It wasn't a shot that just went in there, because it would have been a much smaller entrance wound and a bigger exit wound. And so we thought it was ricocheting off the bulletproof vest, but no, it turns out that was likely the exit wound, because there was no bulletproof vest. So just so many things don't add up. The way that the FBI tried to immediately blame it on trans everything, they moved the goalpost on the trans stuff. Oh, it was a trans shooter. No, it was a trans bullet. No, it was a trans roommate to the person who did it or something. The text messages that were released, which were absolutely absurd, where you have Tyler Robinson texting like he's a fucking 55-year-old, filling in all the plot holes that the FBI would need to try to convict him. So you got all that going on. And then you have the creepy-ass background story where it was the Gray Zone and Max Blumenthal. They wrote a number of articles getting into what was happening behind the scenes with Charlie. And a lot of the stuff was very bizarre. You had Netanyahu in Israel offering, like over $100 million or something like that for TPUSA, and Charlie had rejected that. Charlie had rejected a trip to Israel. There were donors who were really pissed at him for having Dave Smith and Tucker Carlson at these TPUSA events and sort of entertaining these more anti-Israel right-wing ideas as opposed to the typical, old school neocon right-wing idea of like Republicans always support Israel. And so it's just a lot of stuff that's sketchy. Well, guess what? We just got some new text messages that were released by Candace Owens. Now, what's interesting, I know Candace Owens by herself is not a great source. That's a fact. However, this was actually verified by Charlie Kirk's best friend and business partner, which I'll show you in a minute. So here are texts, I should say, in a group chat that Charlie sent 2 days before he was killed. Ready? Charlie said this: "Just lost another huge Jewish donor, $2 million a year because we won't cancel Tucker. I'm thinking of inviting Candace. Ugh." Charlie says, "Jewish donors play into all the stereotypes. I cannot and will not be bullied like this, leaving me no choice but to leave the pro-Israel cause." Now, let me just pause to point out a couple things here. What does it say about Charlie that as long as he was getting money from pro-Israel donors, he was willing to be a pro-Israel sycophant? That tells me he's a whore. He's a political whore. And you can pay for his opinions, right? Billionaires can pay for his support. That's what that tells me. And that's inevitable. Don't even try to weasel out of that. That's just a fact. That's the inevitable conclusion. That is the basic logic of what he's saying here. When they were paying me, yeah, sure, I no problem being with the cause. But now, I don't know, they just cut off $2 million, so that gives me more incentive to get away from the pro-Israel cause. Well, I don't know. The thing that should have given you the incentive to get away from the pro-Israel cause was maybe the genocide that's been live streamed in front of our eyes for the past 2 fucking years. Maybe that should have been the thing, not I lost $2 million from a donor. But having said that, this is ironclad proof that he was, according to him, in his own words, I'm leaving the pro-Israel cause. Now, if you're Netanyahu and you're Israel, and you look at this, Netanyahu has said publicly, the most important thing for us is to make sure we hold the Republican voters, the Republican Party. So if we lose Republicans, we lose everything, right? Because Democrats are gone. Democratic voters fucking hate you. They're never coming back. We hate the fucking genocide. It's over among Democrats. They've come out as very right-wing. Likud and Netanyahu used to pretend to be bipartisan. Now they're very, very right-wing. And polls show young Republican voters are more anti-Israel than pro-Israel. It's not by a crazy margin. It's like maybe 55% or so are more anti-Israel than pro-Israel. But Netanyahu looks at that, and so in his mind, he thinks the future of Israel is tied to continued U.S. support. We've already given them $38 billion of support. The future of Israel is tied to continued U.S. support, and the continued U.S. support needs to come from one of the two major political parties, the Republicans. And so the Democrats are gone. We have to keep the Republicans. Young Republicans are turning on us. So what would be very important in his mind? I don't know, maybe the head of the youth wing of the propaganda movement for the Republicans, namely Charlie Kirk. Like, that was his job. I'm the propaganda minister for young Republicans. That's basically his job. I'm a wing of MAGA that's doing the dirty work and the propaganda efforts to keep young people right wing and on board. And if Charlie Kirk were to go full Dave Smith or full Tucker Carlson, I think Netanyahu views that as an existential threat to the project of Israel. I think he does. Because if you know Democrats are going to cut off your money at some point, and if you lose young Republicans are going to cut off your money at some point, what are you going to do? Where's your $38 billion come from? Where's your Iron Dome come from? Where's all your fucking weapons and shit come from? Where's your ammunition come from? Where's your backing at the UN come from, right? Now, by the way, somebody responded, please don't invite Candace. That might feel good short term, but it's not good long term, in my opinion. Like all groups, you're going to get wide variety of opinions. That nasty free will thing that God bestowed on us makes life frustrating at times. So I believe one of the only, I think it was, did Candace say it was like 9 people in this group chat? One of them is this guy, Josh Hammer. Josh Hammer is this guy who's a pro-Israel Zionist. He debated Dave Smith at one of the TPUSA events. That, I'm sure, was one of the things that pissed off these pro-Israel donors and made them cut off all this money. To Charlie, absolutely crazy stuff. All right, so I got more for you. So here is, just to verify that these texts are indeed real, this is Charlie Kirk's best friend and business partner. He comes out and says, yeah, the texts are real. Watch.
Started this show to address some of the things that have been going around on public, namely about a group text chain that has been made known and released by Candace Owens. And I just want to address it head on because, that was a screen grab that I had shared with people. So it is authentic. And I want to go into it because I actually am really excited that the truth is out there.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure you are. I'm sure you're excited about that. All right. Then we also have Candace comes out and says the following as well. Here we go.
3 people told me off record. 2 people who have this in a written communication from Charlie. One who is a Turning Point USA donor, and I would say very much one of the white knights in this. The very day before Charlie Kirk died, he expressed that he thought he was going to be killed. He told these people, I think they're going to kill me. Okay. He did not express that to me. So I am telling you this based off the testimony of 3 people. And I am saying this because I hope that these people who I think are good will be inspired to come forward with that. Again, those conversations I had were off record. I honor that. If I say it's off record, it stays off record. But I'm hoping that watching what I am doing and feeling the energy that is rising across the world for people who want to know what the heck happened on 9/10, that, they will be brave and they will say, yeah, Charlie did the day before he died think that he was going to be killed, and maybe tell us, who is they? Well, for once and for all, who is they? Who is the they that he thought were going to kill him?
So, by the way, Candace, when somebody says off the record, that means you can't even do what you just did. Off the record means don't say anything about it publicly. Not, I'll say it publicly, but I won't give my source up. Off the record is like, don't say any of this on the record. So she let that cat out of the bag a little bit. But the texts are real, man. That is fucking bizarre. Look, the only thing I'll say I'm convinced of is that the official story is bullshit. That's the only thing I'm convinced of. Is that the idea of, it was Tyler Robinson and only Tyler Robinson and, the FBI happened to nail him. That's the only part of this. And I'm like, nope, that's bullshit. Now, who knows if they'll be able to get a conviction? Who knows if they'll have some corrupt-ass judge that they can just basically grant them a conviction without having to do their job properly. But I don't buy the official story. Anything else is, look, other things are on the table. And I don't know. what the answer is, but obviously a lot of the speculation now is foreign intelligence. Now, by the way, this also is fishy as fuck. So now you have Anna Paulina Luna, the Republican congressman who's out there going, yep, you know what? You're right. Foreign intelligence is involved. I think it's China. Really? That's what we're going with? Somebody said China. Somebody said Russia. Like, what? What are you talking? What? Or maybe, was it Russia or Ukraine? But anyway, the Republicans are sort of scrambling, and the pro-Israel Republicans are sort of scrambling to be like, oh yeah, no, totally, bro. I mean, there was foreign intelligence involved, but it was China and stuff, bro. Come on, man. Now that there's zero evidence for, you know what I'm saying? And to be clear, there's no hard evidence that Israel was involved in this either. Everything that we're talking about to this point is circumstantial, not hard evidence. And you would need hard evidence to actually draw some firm conclusions. Having said that, I understand all the speculation. I understand all the chatter, because this shit, the official story does not add the fuck up at all. And now this is validating what the narrative was from early on. You know, people were saying, hey man, he was going to turn on Israel and they didn't like that. And then he was riding Israel's nuts nonstop up until the day he died. But here's him saying, I might have to leave the pro-Israel cause 2 days before he died. Certainly, at the very least, a bizarre coincidence. I'll say that. Hey y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop. And watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.